Good morning and good afternoon, folks. Hope everyone is doing well. My name's Joe Furla, and I'm going to go ahead and lead today's masterclass, specifically around deployment and the best practices associated with it. We'll also go through a couple little tips and tricks for automating some of our deployments to make our lives easier. So we'll go ahead and get started. Real quick in today's agenda, like I mentioned, we're going to go through the types of deployment and how we can push agents from within the Insight RMN. We'll talk about a couple pieces of automation within that deployment motion, go over some key outcomes of what we're looking to gain out of today's session, and then we'll also go through a demo, which is, let's be honest, the real reason we're here. So before we go ahead and get started into the installation methods, a couple quick housekeeping items we'd like to go over. Let's please do ask questions. There's a questions pane in the GoToMeeting UI. Please use that for your questions. As I do request everybody stay on mute. There's a large number of us in here today, and we don't want everybody talking over each other. So that questions pane is the way to get your questions answered. Please note, I don't typically like when you hold questions till the end. Ask your questions as we're going through the conversation and through the demo. Context is always key when getting those questions answered. So as we are going through our conversation, please don't feel that you need to hold anything to the end. Right. On top of that, please note, if we do talk about any forward-facing items, I'm not dev nor my PM. I don't control the schedules. So if we talk about anything forward-facing, please be aware of giving you the most accurate information I have at this point in time, but timeframes are always subject to change. So let's go ahead and let's dive right in. We do have about 50 minutes worth of content today, so we will be using pretty close to the full hour. All right, so within Insight, there is going to be 5 installation methods that we can utilize. One of them will take a little bit more manual work on your end, as we are still in the process of developing our path for it. But when we look at those 5 installation methods, we're going to have our manual installation method. This is where we download the agent from the Insight dashboard to the device that we are looking at installing the agent on and manually go through that installation process. It's not the most fun way to do the installation, but what this will allow us to do is control the registration of the device a little bit closer, with a little bit more detail. And more importantly, this will allow us to upgrade a workstation agent to a server agent. So say, for instance, you have a CEO or an engineer or some laptop or desktop that requires a check type that may not be available at the workstation level. Easiest example is SNMP checks that can talk to the outside world. And you can manually install that agent on that desktop, and you'll see a nice little radio button in the wizard as you walk through that says server agent. The reason we do this again is the checks that aren't available for workstations. So we mentioned SNMP checks. Workstation SNMP checks talk to themselves. It talks to that device only. Server SNMP checks talk to the outside world as well as to itself. You'll also see some other things like TCP checks and a couple other items we'll briefly hit in the demo so you can see the differences. Primarily, what we are going to look at utilizing is going to be our site installation package options. And we've got 2 methods that we can look at doing this. We've got our drop-down that we see in the screenshot on the slide, where you will see a download agent section That download agent at the bottom will have a site installation package generator. That site installation package will allow us to make what we call a remote worker agent, pretty much a silent install package, or a GPO installer that can be used for Windows devices only. The GPO installer is a great way to get Windows devices into the dashboard. Just do be aware as you are looking at utilizing that GPO installer as we go through anything like agent upgrades, or we go to any additional troubleshooting or repairing of that particular agent in the event that support is needed, you will have to look at going through GPO. So if you start with GPO, you continue with GPO. The remote worker installer, that silent install, can be updated directly through the dashboard and the like. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that during the demo itself. The add device button, which we do not see in our screenshot because it is blocked by the agent dropdown, will give us the ability to go through a little bit more of an updated wizard to create a site installation package that is going to mimic the remote worker package quite nicely. The other method of installation that we're going to have built into the dashboard today is going to be our push installation. That push installation will be found within the Networks tab. It requires a network to be managed. Talk about how we can get that done. Okay. And what you can do once you manage a network is through the list of devices on that network for Mac or Windows devices, you can right-click on that device, click Push Agent, and you'll be able to perform an install. This does require an agent to already be on that network, what we're going to use to discover anything. And that agent or that device that has that discovery agent will be the item or be the device that pushes that installation. And we'll talk a little bit more about some tips and tricks when we look at our push installations and how we can look at smoothing that process out. Say, by primarily making our discovery device a server, or looking at what type of credentials or any proxy information we may be able to supply those push installations just to make us run easier. The fifth method of installation is doing the Intune deployment. Now, this is the one where I mentioned there's going to be a bit more manual work on your end because we don't have our path set yet. However, a large number of the mature MSPs that I work with that are utilizing it to have created their own scripting and created their own Intune deployments of the agent. We've heard that loud and clear. So we're going to be looking at developing our own version of this. However, what we need to get done first is an MSI installer. So when we talk about some forward-facing items here, right, where we look at coming quite quickly, that MSI installer and the Intune installation method, right, do keep an ear and an eye out for it. Excuse me for that pause. It is still allergy season here in Raleigh, North Carolina, at least for me. So I had to cough and sniffle. You guys don't want to hear that. Anyway, these are our primary installation methods. There are a couple more, well, I should say one more outside of this, and it can be done via API. Not my favorite way to look at doing any installation. And the reason I say this isn't because our API can't handle this. It's because of the way our API is working. Okay? For brief moments in time, when utilizing PowerShell, Python, or whatever scripting language you would like to call that agent down, your API key will be visible during the running of that script. So maybe not the most security conscious way to do it. It can be done, but not my preferred method. We are looking at updating our API. And as you see us get closer and closer to the Ecoverse reality, we're going to look at seeing that API get updated into like a Swagger API or something along those lines that will give us a bit more security and give us the ability to look at more heavily utilizing that API method of installation. And so 2 things to keep your eyes and ears out for. For those of you real quickly who aren't aware of or know of this Ecoverse movement, what Ecoverse is going to be a unification of our platforms. That's not to say that you're going to lose Insight or lose Cove or Take Control or whatever enabled product you're using or looking at. What it means is we're going to provide a dashboard that centralizes information and allows you to centralize third-party application information as well. For those of you who have been on Insight for the past couple of years, you've seen a lot of this already happening under the hood. We saw the unification of the patch management engine with the Incentral patch management engine. We saw Take Control engines unified. We've seen the MSP advanced agent or unified agent starting to get pushed. So we're making big steps towards this Ecoverse world that will allow us to take data from our enabled product and our third-party products for that matter, bring it into a centralized location, perform automated tasks, or perform any type of maintenance or proactive self-healing that you would like within that environment. Think of it acting as a quarterback with all of your other tools, as well as provide a great repository for centralized reporting and data analytics. Okay, to kind of keep that very short and sweet in the Ecoverse world. Okay. Now, I've thrown a couple of links up here. I'm aware they're not clickable. That's my apology. What you'll see is within the Enabled University, okay, or any of the trainings we offer through our platform. Okay, so you can go to meet.in-able.com. Under the learning section, you'll see Enable You. You can get to these links, or you can get to them from the user manual, to be quite honest. But basic requirements that we're going to need for installation of our product. One, we're going to need to have a supported operating system. For Windows, it's suggested we are on 10 or 11. We do support 8. We can work with 7. You're not going back that far. Okay. And then when we look at servers with 2016, 2019, 22, then we can go a little bit further back than that. But once we go further back than that, we are not actively developing and bug correction for those older OSs, which I think is understandable. For Linux, we're not going to go through the laundry list of distributions and flavors of Linux that are available for support. There is more than likely an agent for you. And then for Mac, we'll look at going back to OS 13. We can go a little bit further back than that, but again, we're not actively bug correction. We're not actively supporting those older OSs. And outside of that, we need to focus on communication. When folks come to me as a heck nerd and they're having issues with the dashboard, tasks are kicking off. Features aren't installing properly, like say managed antivirus or EDR or patch management or Take Control or remote background and the like. 90% of the problems are solved by the fact that we're not able to properly communicate. And I know this sounds kind of basic to those who have been in the MSP game for a long period of time, but it's one of the easiest things for us to miss. So we're going to look at making sure that we have communication over port 80 and 443 allowed. And we've got the ability to make sure that our dashboard URLs, primary dashboard URL that you're going to use to log in, as well as our feature URLs, which are a subset of that, are able to communicate with the dashboard. If you have any questions as to what you should be looking at, the QR codes here will bring you to those lists. Again, if you want the URLs or the user manual, you can either go to it directly, or you can always look at attending a subsequent training on this. And we'll go over that a little bit more in the demo section as well. And so when we are going through deployment and we're looking at providing any type of automation or silence install or how we are going to decide to get our agents to our devices, there's going to be a couple questions that we need to look at asking ourselves. And again, I feel that these are basics, but I've seen very mature, very experienced MSPs sometimes forget that. Right? And we'll start with how our devices spread across our network or networks. Is this something where I can manually install a single agent because every device is on the same network, use the push installation? Am I dealing with different geographical locations under the same company? Do I need to be using the site installation package to perform this push? Do I have to upgrade a workstation to a server, necessitating a manual installation? Can I use Intune? These are all things we need to look at in that beginning portion of our installation. We go through what type of devices, right? If we've got Linux devices, we can't use GPO. We got Mac devices, we can't use GPO, right? So as we're going through these installation, right, those two tend to be the primary questions to ask. And then the other ones coming down with, is there existing software that cause compatibility issues? Am I using a very beefed up EDR tool that's going to look at this agent and say, nope, installation cannot happen? AKA, is my whitelisting correct? Now, most of the major players in the security world, we do play well with. We work well in the same sandbox. We shouldn't see many issues there, but something to make sure that we're looking at. And then again, the communication. Right, before even installing an agent, let's take a look at our firewall rules. Let's take a look at our whitelist, our blacklist. What are we preventing communication logs that may come in and cause an issue here? So let's hop into the real fun of this, right? The reason we're here. How are we going to install? What is this going to look like if I'm in the real world? And we'll start off with our user manual, right? Because we mentioned there's going to be a couple places that we want to sit within. Oops, I don't want to go to getting started. We go to user guides, sit within the dashboard. And if we're underneath getting started, we can see our network connectivity requirements and supported OSs. So if I come in, my agent communication URLs are broken down by geo. These will be given to you when you sign up for a trial or you already have them because you are an Insight user. Please note the two places or the couple places we need to be aware of where there may be confusion with URLs is going to be our America section, our France section, and our US section. So if we're a North American or Canadian client, depending on when you sign with us, you may be in a US dashboard or an AM dashboard, AM being the more modern. About 5 or 6 years ago, we moved to the AM dashboard. The systemmonitor.us is for our more legacy clients. In France, we see the same thing, where we have France 1 and we have the system monitor France URL. So be aware as we're looking at doing any whitelisting, you want to make sure that you're pulling something from a similar looking URL here. And persistent connection requirements are pretty easy. Right. If we have any questions about what's going on here or what we need to look at with our firewall, restricting outbound HTTPS connections, we've got our nice little list connected to our master server for communication. And then we'll have our list of feature URLs and dashboard URLs to make sure we're looking at getting started properly. Underneath the supported OS, Windows, Mac, or Linux, and we'll have a nice little graph chart, whatever, where we're going to see if we are supported in green. So for instance, with Windows workstations, we're at 11, Enterprise and Pro for 10. We have compatible, but that means we're not tested or supported. So with 11 home, 10 home, 8 and 7, right? And then we'll see some not compatible if appropriate. And each of these we'll list out for our OS flavors. Linux being the most laundry list that we're going to look at, as we do support a large number of distros and flavors there. All right. Once we get into our push for installation, okay, there's going to be a number of places that we can sit. We talked about those 5 ways we can look at pushing installation, and we'll start with the easiest of these, which will be underneath the server, workstation, or mixed tabs, which are going to show our servers and workstations, or all servers and all workstations in the same tab, the add device section. It's going to bring us to a nice little wizard here that will allow us to choose the client we would like to deploy that agent for, the OS flavor, and the site. Once we click next, it'll build our agent package for us. We'll be able to pull the zip, and we'll be able to use that zip file to look at pushing agents. You'll see the installer executable directly inside it. And again, it's going to very much mimic what we see with a remote worker installation. And we'll talk about that, I promise. Underneath the agent dropdown, we've got the download agent section. And this is where we're going to see our ability to have a bit more flexibility with agent version we are pushing. That add device button that we mentioned, it's a little bit of the easy button. We're going to select OS. It's going to handle any version. So when that agent installs, it's going to pull the most recent version of, and that agent downloads, it's going to pull the most recent version available for us. In the section we're at here, we'll note we're doing the manual download, where we have those top 4 options. And we'll see 3 agents that are just a version: the Windows 10.14.3, the Mac 3.10.0, and the Linux 2.2.0. These are what we call our general availability agents. And these are the agents that have been pushed for end user and production use. We see one agent up here, the Windows 10.14.4 RC. RC denotes release candidate. These are agents that are designed for you to internally test features that will be released when the new agent comes out. So this is your kind of testing agent. The RC candidate should not be pushed to a production device unless someone in support, a head nerd, or a sales engineer tells you to do so. The only reason we'll be looking at doing that is to look at some type of bug crunch where we've tested that agent already. We know it's good and stable, and we'll say, hey, look, if you want to push the RC, it could solve XYZ problem. Okay? But very rarely do we see that happen. So we have our general availability here. We have our release candidates here. For Linux, of course, we're going to come in, pick the flavor, okay? And you can push the agent as you would need for that manual installation. The download site installation package is where we'll be able to get to our group policy. And then just like we saw in that device, our remote worker installers. Again, we come in, we'll pick our client, we'll pick our site, and we'll pick our agent version. Here, you'll note we are given some more flexibility, right? For Windows, we'll have a GA agent and a legacy agent at least. There may be an RC. For Mac and Linux, you're going to see a GA or general availability and a possible RC or release candidate. And the legacy agent here is designed for older devices that I hope you are not supporting as MSPs. If you are, we're looking at like XP, we're looking at Vista, we're looking at like really old school. You have my condolences. You still have to support some of those XP older devices. Okay, but the legacy agent is there if you need in a pinch, please. Very rarely should we ever be using it. So we'll pretend we're working with a modern Windows environment. Okay, pick our GA 10.14.3 agent. We have the ability to enter in any proxy information we may need, address, port, username, password, get those admin credentials. Once we come in and click next, the wizard's going to generate the packages for us. Okay, so you'll see this take a second, just like we saw with that add device, right? It's creating the packages that we may need to download, pulling the information we may need, and then we'll be given the option to pull the GPO or remote worker. And the GPO, download, slap it on a USB stick, you're off to the races to install or access that device to push installation as you would be. The remote worker you can download and you can run with as you would like. When we're looking at doing some more automation within the installation world of the agent, the remote worker or the add device section is going to be your bread and butter. Because we give you the executable to disperse as you would need. I've seen MSPs email the installer. I've seen them put it into a shareable location on site for end users to pull. I myself would take that remote worker in the executable, push it into my website with a little bit of PowerShell behind a paywall. And I want credentials going in so I can see who's coming in to click my link to pull that remote worker and then install as necessary. Okay. There are some ways for you to look at taking this executable and starting to automate that flow so you don't have to touch every device. So even your end users don't have to go and perform an install, right? Again, we have this single click silence installer. Yes, install it. Hey, we're good to go. Excuse me. Right. Now, within our downloads, okay, where we have our zips, right, we can see listed by company and site, as well as a denotation of RW, which again means remote worker. We will have the ability to extract all of that information. We can come in, we can grab that executable. Now, as we are looking at performing installations outside of existing devices, let's say, for instance, I want to look at creating a golden image, then I'm going to just clone devices off. I'm just going to start spinning them up. Right? What we'll need to do is we can come in and we can look at pushing even further into our zip here. And we'll be able to find our settings INI file. And bear with me, it might be stuck in this one as a good example. All right, here we go. Sorry, resume sharing. I had to make sure I could get my hands on it. Let's pop back up to our agent. So we come in. Okay, I just used WinRAR extract files. We get our nice little folder. We get our package zip. We take our package zip. We get our settings INI. So our settings INI here is what's going to be used to register the device with unique IDs, with proper geolocationing, and the like. When we're looking at creating our golden image, hey, we don't want the settings INI to be here. Okay, we can remove it. Okay, we're not going to do any damage, because what will happen is once we look at pulling and starting to install the agent on that device before registration for that golden image, we'll pause, remove the settings INI. That way, whenever we look at coding that particular device, or creating something new based off it, the installation of the agent will happen. Before registration, the agent will note, hey, I don't have that settings INI. It'll prepare itself, and it will create a unique device ID. We won't be copying that information over. And this is specifically to prevent duplicates within our dashboard installation process. Duplicate devices within the dashboard are never fun to deal with. So be aware, if we're looking at doing those golden images, the settings INI, which we're able to pull out of that install right before registration, is what we're looking at. Okay? Shouldn't be too difficult for us to handle. If we have any questions on that, there is some very good documentation within the user guide that can help with that particular workflow. And so covering most of our installation methods there, right? Our manual, our group policy, our remote worker, and our app device section. The last one we're going to take a look at in the dashboard itself is going to be our networks tab. So up here in our north pane, we'll see networks. As we come to this top left-hand corner, we'll see a drop-down where you can select to manage a new network. So if there's an available network with an agent already on it that you can manage, it will show up in this list. You'll select the manage that network, enter in any appropriate information you would like which company is it associated to, which site, and what are you going to name it. And what we'll do is we'll start populating our connected devices. Inside this connected devices tab, if we see inside the agent column a no for Windows or Mac, highlight the device, right click, and hit push monitoring agent. You'll enter in admin credentials for that device and any proxy server settings that may be necessary. And once you click start checks here, you'll see a silent install take place on that device to push the agents to it. And biggest, I don't want to say no-nos or mishaps I see here are just really improper credentials. We're not using our Insight credentials. We're not using our user credentials on that device. We need to make sure we are using admin credentials for that particular device to push that particular agent. During that installation, what we will see is our discovery agent, which we can see here underneath network details, is the agent that will push that particular is the device that will push that particular agent. If you do not have a preferred discovery agent selected, the dashboard will automatically pull a device that is able to communicate with the most number of devices on that network. If you would like to set a preferred discovery agent, right here with this hyperlink that says change, you can come in, select an appropriate device, and designate it as your discovery agent. And this is recommended. I always recommend having a server as your discovery agent. They are on 24/7. And the reason we really like that is because it's going to keep a very good connection history. Okay. And also log activities on that network quite well. Now, for mine, We're obviously seeing some truncated information here, but that's because I'm stuck in the enabled VM farm. Okay. In the real world, we'll see a list of every device that's connected to that network within the past 90 days. Cell phones, network devices, laptops, workstations, servers, whatever. Okay. And the activity history will be a nice little log of who's done what, when, and where. So some nice methods to quickly and easily get agents to our devices. Now, the last thing we'll address inside the agent kind of more management world is going to be our agent auto update settings here. It's a little bit of a misnomer, probably some of the worst nomenclature within Insight, okay, in that it says agent auto update. This is the manual update method. So what I can do is if I want to make sure I have all modern agents on my devices, I can expand out my servers and my workstations. If I see yellow, that tells me there's a device that is not up to date. If I see red, that tells me that there's a device that's way out of date. Yellow, more often than not, means pending an update. So we can see here for my PE 1351 device, I have a pending update coming. Okay. If I was to see red here, it means there's no pending update. So what I can do is for whichever level I'm at, for the OS flavors we support, I can select to push an update command to the most recent agent. Not the RC, but to the most recent. If you need to update an individual device to an RC or multiple devices to an RC, that will be done at the device level, and you'll have to go device by device. Okay. And then obviously here what we're seeing is our servers. We support Windows and Linux. Workstations, we support Mac and Windows. What this means for us in the Linux world is no matter what the function of that Linux device is going to be, is it will always be designated a server. In the Mac world, that really shouldn't mean much to us unless you have an old school Mac server sitting around, in which case, please shoot me an email, joseph.ferla, that's Ferla, @enable.com. I want to see it. It's been since 2011 I saw a Mac server in the wild. So, nostalgia and such, as I'm not only the Insight head nerd, but the Mac head nerd. All right. Now, this can be a bit arduous. I've got to remember to update my agents when a new GA agent comes out, right? I've got to build this into my calendar. I'm going to forget this, blah, right? I work as an MSP. I can't tell you how many times on my monthly is there new agent updates necessary check, I forgot to do so. It just is what it is. Okay. There is some protection for this built into the Insight dashboard, right? And what that protection is that if you are 2 major versions behind on the agent, so we're at 10.14.3 right now. If we were at an agent 10.14.1, it will automatically update itself to the current agent. Okay, so we do have some auto update functionality there. This also provides us some protection for when we are looking at our installation packages. So if we come back to my download section here, you'll note my agents that I've generated here are showing the version 10.14.3. In the past, every time you wanted a site installation package that had the most current agent available, you had to go and generate a new one. So you onboard one user at a client, you site installation package, right? You have machines you're updating for an existing client, new site installation package. That's no longer necessary because what will happen is this site installation package will push, in my particular case here, 10.14.3. But if we were already at a .6 release, the agent would auto-update itself because it's 2 or more major versions behind. Okay, so please do be aware there is some help with our maintenance in that particular world. Right? So, installation here. Okay, agent pushing, quite nice. There's a little bit of automation that we can get behind this where we're going to be looking at doing some things like utilizing our site installation packages to the best of their ability, or taking that executable, pumping it into it, and using that to the best of its capabilities. But there's some other things that we need to take a look at as we are performing installations that can help automate some of the necessary onboarding steps that we're going to see both within Insight and outside of Insight. Oh, real quick, let's back up. Got a good question here. Does auto-updating agents cause issues with the installation? No. Okay. And obviously, great question. Because if it tried to update in the middle of installation, that would be a pain in whatever expletive you'd like to stick in that sentence. Okay. What will happen for that installation is the agent, so in my particular case, 10.14.3 will install itself. It will register. It will call back to the dashboard, make sure it's properly able to communicate and the like. And then once that initial communication happens and the agent itself determines it is stable, it will then perform that automatic update. Okay, we will not mid-flight try and update the agent while we are either confirming a successful installation or performing that installation. So we should not see any butting heads there, right? Good call out. Okay, so automating some things after that successful installation is handled. Where a lot of this is going to sit, it's going to be underneath the settings section. And it's going to be our monitoring templates. Okay. Monitoring templates underneath this manage template section are, for all intents and purposes, containers that house a configuration of checks and its tasks. So you're probably asking yourself, this has nothing to do with installation. Here's this kick on. Man. And the reason I bring this up is it allows us to get away from the check detection scan that happens during installation. The check detection scan is good if we're trialing the tool, or if we're looking to see if we missed anything on a device that we may need to be monitoring. But it's not something we should rely on in the real world. Monitoring templates are able to be created where we can add our checks and tasks to those monitoring templates as we would need, utilizing our little add function here to conform to our SOWs, ensuring that we are in contractual compliance, and to our SOPs, ensuring that our standard operating procedures and the necessary tools that they need have been covered. This is something I would heavily utilize during installation. I don't want Windows antivirus or security checks on the device. I don't need that. I'm using a third-party EDR tool, right? I need to make sure I have the checks associated with that piece of software. Right? I need to make sure that my disk space for drive C is properly set to look at 15% as a threshold. Right? I chose 15% when I was in the real world because I utilized Sentinel-1. Sentinel-1 recommends that you have 10% disk space free so it can keep a proper amount of VSS shadow copies to allow its rollback function to work. 15% threshold. When that 15% threshold kicks off, check fails, I automatically empty the recycle bin, clean up all temp files, and delete all downloads over the 90 days. Get some proactive maintenance out of it, right? I get the fake contributors to device they taken care of. And then if I need to talk to an end user about why they have 1 terabyte of cat videos on their machine, right? I'm targeting not by exception or not by a rule at this point. I'm targeting by the exception that my work doesn't take place. I digress. The other big portion of this that needs to be brought up when we talk about installation here is what can I do with checks and tasks? I can come in and look at, say, from a script check, look to see is a specific application installed? Is Chrome installed? Is Chocolatey installed? If I'm going to use Chocolatey to automate the installation of applications. Okay. Is my EDR tool installed? Is my backup tool installed? Is my failover remote access tool installed? Is that MDR agent installed? Right? Is this piece of mission critical software installed? Like, maybe I have a manufacturing end user and they need AutoCAD on all their devices. My condolences if you have to support AutoCAD. I've had to do that a couple of times. It's not the best. Can be lucrative, but do my finance devices have QuickBooks properly installed? Does my SQL server have the appropriate application set installed on it? So I can come in, have my is check installed tied to the device, and then for my automated task, I can, at least in this particular instance where we say look at Chrome, right? Is Google Chrome installed? Check fails. I can come in and I can look at my using Chocolatey to install Google Chrome. Click next. Come in on check failure. Script checked. Is Google Chrome installed? Set up permitted execution time. Okay. And set up that relationship. So now what I can do is have the initial installation of my agent upon onboarding. Also look at performing some of that proactive maintenance that my engineers are never having a fun time with. Like, who really likes to make sure that mission critical software is installed on every device? Not many people. Who would like to make sure that we're not seeing any check failures for mission critical software with a report that could be gotten to in a couple of clicks? That seems like a whole lot more fun, right? Start to manage this onboarding and health check process a bit more through automation. Okay, and we'll even see some of those items start to be built into the Insight dashboard, right? So say, for instance, if you use Cove, one of the things that I'm looking at building with our Cove Head Nerd is a piece of PowerShell that will natively have inside Insight that will install Cove, data protection, our backup solution, right? You have a Cove check. Is Cove running? No. Install it, right? Maybe not is it running, but in a bit more complicated of a fashion or a bit more granular of a fashion. Look at doing that. For those of you who are familiar with monitoring templates, you're probably aware of the fact that I can apply monitoring templates manually at the site device or the client level. This is not the way we want to do this. You're also probably aware that at the edit site level or section, I can pick a default monitoring template for my devices. This is, again, not the way we want to do this. The application manually of a template should not be your onboarding method. We'll talk about that in a second. This edit device section here does not split out by OS. That means if I pick a default monitoring template for my workstation monitoring here, that means it's going to look for Windows devices only, And for Mac devices, I may get a Windows template installed on it or pushed to it. That does not work in any sense of the term for our purposes. Where we want to be and where we want to sit is going to be underneath monitoring templates and new device installation. This is where at a client, site, or machine type level, I can turn this off or on. And with the levels below it, utilize the use parent denotation to take advantage of this grandparent-parent-child relationship. What this will allow me to do, as we see here, is now differentiate by OS type. I can have a Windows and Linux server template. I can have a Windows and Mac workstation template, where I can perform that same theory or same philosophy of actions. Get away from the check detection scan. Okay, we'll see a radio box here for it. Or checkbox here for it. Don't check it. Okay, and get to where I'm pushing a template of checks and tasks for proactive maintenance, monitoring, and self-healing that reflects my SOPs and my SOWs, not what the dashboard thinks I need to be pushing. Okay. Now for this apply monitoring template section at the site, the device, or the client level, you'll note I'm able to push 10 templates at once here. What I would do with this inside the real world is I would have monitoring templates that reflected my packages. I sold by high media low security in a fashion. They call it that, gold, silver, bronze, but that's okay, right? Sell it based off of security and risk acceptance. Okay. Then underneath that, what I would have is role and application specific templates. I had a SQL template. I had an Exchange template. I had a DC template. I had a CAD template. I had a QuickBooks template. I had a mission critical piece of software template for those things that were outside of my initial monitoring template that I could apply to devices. So being that I managed a lot of veterinary practices, right, who had multi-role servers, I could come into that server and I could look at applying the SQL, the Exchange, and the AD or DC templates all at once. Make sure I'm monitoring that when I need to be from with either in my SOPs or SOWs. You can also hierarchy the templates as you need so that when you come down here to select update behavior and you select add new checks and tasks to the existing ones and replace checks and tasks with those in the templates in event of duplicates, the templates at the top take precedence. I have a DC, the SQL template, where I was looking at access policy, right? My DC template takes precedence. The SQL template is secondary because the DC template should be checking for all permissions, even including those. Down here at the bottom, underneath update behavior, replace existing checks and tasks. This is a wholesale replace. The template on the device and its checks and tasks is removed, and the ones that you've selected here are now added. There is no undo button here. If there is, if an oopsie happens, and we replace, say, our primary monitoring template with the QuickBooks template, There isn't a go back. So be aware when selecting that bottom option, we need to be fully aware of what's going to happen. 99.99999 times out of 100, the add new existing or add new to the existing with the replacements going to be the behavior we're going to select here. Right. So as we're moving through installation, this kind of brings us to where now we're stepping away from that deployment motion and moving into some of our other master classes that we have, where we're going to see device management, where we're going to see device optimization, we'll see true automation. So if we have questions that go above and beyond where we're kind of stopping today, which is about here, right, you'll note you have a bunch of resources at your disposal where you can get those questions answered. Okay. One of them is myself. You could always shoot me an email, joseph.ferla, that's Ferla, @enable.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions you folks have. You also, within the Enable Me portal, at me.n-able.com, find our learning section. So right here, we see that Enable U or Enable University. You will find masterclass type stuff. You'll find boot camps. You'll find what we call office hours, Q&A sessions. Okay. You'll find getting started series. You'll find advanced training on all of our tools. You'll find so many resources. It's already funny under here. Then you'll also, from the Enable Resources page, be able to view the past masterclasses once those get posted. Okay, there are a number of them already up there. Last I checked, which was like a day ago, the deployment one was not yet, but this is the second running of it. So we still need marketing and legal to go through to make sure I didn't say anything too truly stupid. And they'll look at posting on those classes up there. Right. So that'll bring us right to the end here, just at the top of the hour. If you are new to Insights and you would like to start a trial, please feel free to scan the QR code here. It will bring you to our trial form so that you can gain immediate access to our platform. Please note, if you are going to start a trial of Insight, your trial will be your production mode when you go live. So anything you practice and put into that trial, that effort over the 30-day trial will not be lost. You won't have to replicate it. And so please do keep that in mind. Outside of that, we'll open up for the next couple of minutes for questions. Should you have any, please do get them inside the question. I'd be happy to answer any of them that we may have. And while we're waiting for those questions to come in, because we are right at the top of the hour and I don't want to keep you folks for too long, thank you so much for joining today's masterclass. I very much appreciate these sessions. I do very much like giving these masterclasses. Please note there is a whole series of these where we talk about patching, we talk about automation, we talk about our developer portal, which is an AI-based development tool specifically to work with Insight. You'll see in the future coming security, as well as some optimization of device monitoring type training items. So please do keep an ear out for those. All right, I don't see any questions coming in via the questions pane. So I'm going to go ahead. I will close this out for today. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your busy schedules to come and learn more about the Insight dashboard. Again, should you have any questions or any feedback you would like, you can hit me up, joseph.ferla, that's Ferla, at enable.com. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk to you later.
Joe, I don't know if you're still there, but there's a bit of lag in the questions. I just saw a couple pop in there. Might be too late.
Okay, cool. Will we have access to this recording for reference? Yes. When we get this pushed to our resources section, you will be able to access this. You will be notified as an attendee of the session. There is also within that Enable You portion of the Enable Me dashboard, a Insight certification series, which goes above and beyond what we did today. You'll find the installation portion of that to be about 3 hours worth of content. That's presented by Adrian Coward and myself, as well as Oppo. Please don't make me say his last name. I butcher it every time, and it's embarrassing. But that certification series is really good. It's a great resource. And then there's a number of boot camps and the like. So some great resources there should you want to access something before this particular recording is set. And then as it looks at the end of the questions, I have somebody, what's my favorite color? I have a 3 to 5 year old. So that means my favorite colors are their favorite colors. I don't get mine anymore. And the list would be the 5-year-old at green and blue, and the 3-year-old is orange and yellow. All right, let's see if we have any more questions coming in.
Oh, just a great big thank you there. I see that. So I'll echo that. Thank you very much, Joe. That was a great session. Awesome. Well done.
All right, folks. We'll see you in the next masterclass.